And we also already have the
You're
guest.
live, sir.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. This is the Civil Service Committee for today, Tuesday, October the 20th. We will open up a roll call. Sean,
Councilmember Wingo,
present.
Councilmember Bowman,
Here.
Councilmember Rivera,
Present.
Councilmember Wyatt.
Here.
Quorum is present.
All right, Sean, let's take that from the top.
Item number 1, notice of appointment laborer 2.
Motion to approve items 1 and 2.
Motion is to approve items 1 and 2, seconded by Councilmember Bowman.
Take from the table item 3.
All right. This
Item number 3,
is-
request to speak regarding Buffalo Fire Department.
Item
All right, this item is open, and we have with us Vinny Ventresca, who is the president of the Buffalo Fire Association. What is it called, Vinny? I'm sorry.
Buffalo Professional Firefighters Local 282.
All right, thank you, Vinny. Thank you. And we also have Commissioner Ronaldo from the Buffalo Fire Department on. There have been some questions, some inquiries made regarding, Commissioner Ronaldo's residency. And of course, as a City of Buffalo employee, it is required that all employees who are employed by the city live in the city in certain jobs. Of course, we're still trying to get our Buffalo Police Union to negotiate on permanent residency for the length of a Buffalo police officer to live in the city of Buffalo, because we believe that will be instrumental in the community relations between police and community. But then again, too, of course, with the Buffalo Fire Department, there is already a residency requirement, and we really appreciate that. Now, today we had
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
today we had have the privilege of having both the fire union and our fire commissioner here so that we can get some clarity on some of the issues that have come up. I will be facilitating and moderating this discussion, and I would hope that we can have a very productive exchange here, one that does not include any, accusatory tones, but let's just make sure that we, are fair in our line of questioning, and of course, fair in how we allow folks to respond. So with that being said, the item that is before us, item number 3, is a letter from the Buffalo Professional Firefighters Association from the president, Vinny Ventresca, and it is just simply asking to deal with a few topics, one of which is the commissioner and his residency. We've already, I believe, touched on the financial incompetence, which is a point on his letter, and then the third point was health and safety. So we're here, and again, because we have Vinny and John, let's ask them to open up with any initial questions, since we have Commissioner Ronaldo here.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for this time again. The committee comes in June 26th to our knowledge. In June 26th, to our knowledge, the commissioner was appointed to that position. Also, we're under the impression that he was given a 6-month waiver. So I think you can verify that for us. And then as of December 26th, that waiver would end and he would have to be a resident in he'd have to be a full-time resident of Buffalo starting in January 2019. So we're looking for verification of that, and then we'll go from there.
All right, wonderful. So Commissioner Ronaldo, there is a question on the floor regarding your residency after you were employed for the city of Buffalo for 6 months. Can you please answer the question from the public, and of course, brought by the fire union, your status as far as your residency for the 6 months up until current? And can we unmute the commissioner, Malcolm?
Commissioner, it looks like you've got your cell phone mute. If you could adjust that on your device.
Commissioner, if you could, yeah, you're still muted. There you go. You're muted now. Can you hear me, Commissioner? I'm not sure if the commissioner can hear me. Commissioner, can you hear us? We may need to reset the commissioner's feed so that he can answer the questions, Malcolm.
We'll see if we can get him to call in for audio as well.
Okay. All right, Commissioner, can you hear me, Commissioner? Can you, I don't know. Malcolm, take him out and bring him back in. See if that'll work. We don't want to prolong this any longer than it has to be prolonged. Is there another item that we can go to and hold this in advance until we get him situated? Or no? This is the only item we have left.
Can we look at the agenda to see if there's another item?
This is the only item, sir.
The only
All right, so
item.
this is the only item we have on it. Okay, so it's open. We'll wait. In the meantime, you know, for the ones who are just joining us, maybe on Facebook, we are currently, you know, with the Buffalo Fire, the Buffalo Professional Firefighters Association. And we are joined by the President, Vinny Ventresca, and Vice President, John Otto. And they have made some inquiries relating to the commissioner's residency. We are looking to have the commissioner back with us as soon as we resolve these technical difficulties on their end, so that in all fairness, he can answer these allegations brought by the members of the Buffalo Professional Fires Association, Local 282. All right, so he's currently trying to call back in. And last week, you know, he was not able to answer these questions, but this week we are looking forward to having him come in and give first person accounts of what where he lives, and of course other inquiries by the union. I will be moderating, of course, as a chair, to ensure that the discussion is a productive discussion, and facilitating the exchange to make sure that everyone is being fair. But we're currently trying to get the commissioner back on. Majority Leader?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if we had invited Human Resources in as well to discuss, you know, the policy itself and how we enforce it. We have a policy on the books, and we just don't know whether or not it's being enforced, not just in this specific case, but in all cases involving residency. I think there has to be some teeth because we do have a number of employees that at times live outside of the city of Buffalo when they're supposed to live in the city. I'm speaking in generally here. I'm speaking generally. and we need to make sure that there's a mechanism in place. What's the sense of having a contract, or what's the sense of having an ordinance if there's no teeth to enforce it? So at some point, we're going to have to revisit this, and I'd like for Human Resources to be here to discuss the enforcement part of this.
Mhm. I agree, Majority Leader Rivera. I absolutely agree. But you know, based on the contract that the fire department has with the city, Vinny would be the expert in the room on the contract. So I'm pretty sure he could probably answer that question, and we could, from there, kind of ascertain whether or not this policy has teeth. But the Human Resources Department, I don't believe, was invited. But Vinny, if you could just entertain the question of the Majority Leader.
Yeah, so in our 2013 contract, it was agreed that members would maintain active residency, domiciled residency in the city of Buffalo. And again, to my knowledge, we had a group of members from 2012 class that were restricted, and there was some discussion on that, and they ended up having to stay in the city for 7 years, like the police. But anyone who's been hired, the next classes that were hired were in 2015. And to my knowledge, I mean, obviously the union doesn't have the responsibility to make sure their members are following the residency, but to my knowledge, all the members since 2015 do have active domicile in the city of Buffalo. I guess that leads to the other question, and we started to get into it with legal a little bit, but the question was, what establishes your residence? And I believe the attorney for the city mentioned that you have to be a resident for 183 days, which I think is just over the 6-month period, which makes sense. The question is, how is that? I guess, and that's where civil service comes in. How is that what makes it a residency? You know, in the case of the commissioner, we turn to he's not obviously held to the standard of our contracts. I would be under the impression that he's held to the standard of the city charter, which states clearly that from the date of appointment, the commissioner must live in the city of Buffalo. Graciously, the council afforded him a 6-month waiver. And so as of, December 26th of 2018, he had to be actively resident of the city of Buffalo. And in turn, the residency requirement in the charter states clearly that it's not just where you live, but it's where your family, your wife lives as well. So.
Okay, so that's clear to me. That's clear to me. So once the commissioner comes back on, I will ask him to give us the details that he can provide regarding his residency that would not be, getting too deep into his personal life. So as soon as we get that situated, as soon as he gets back on, we will move forward with the exchange. But I'm Chief of Staff Malcolm, do we have any update on the commissioner?
Just one moment, sir.
Thank you. We have talked about this in the past too, regarding having someone who literally is overseeing residency by the city employees, because we do know that after an employee is hired, there is no mechanism in place to enforce and or verify whether this individual is still living in the city of Buffalo. The only way one would find out if someone is not living in the city of Buffalo is if, someone is targeted and it is discovered that they live in a different area, or they literally are sitting outside someone's house and seeing if they go to sleep there more than 3 days out of the week. So we don't have that person right now, and unfortunately, with the fiscal crisis that just not Buffalo is going through, but the fiscal crisis that a lot of municipalities are going through, adding positions, this is not the time to start adding positions, but that's not to say that it's not needed, because I do believe that is something that is necessary. I believe that's necessary.
Councilman, I am on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So,
Okay,
Commissioner, we
great.
just can't
Thank you.
see you. That's all.
It's fine. Thank you, though.
Okay. So, Commissioner, we would like for you to help us understand where you live. Do you live in the city of Buffalo currently?
Yes, I do. I live at 361 Taunton Place, and I've resided there for well over a year now.
Okay. So you resided there for a year. There was a question that was asked regarding your residency last year regarding a vote in, I believe, Tonawanda?
Yes, previous to being appointed to this position, I did own a house in Tonawanda. I live in Tonawanda. I still own that house, although it's been sold, and actually I'll be closing by the end of the month. I'll close on that home, so I will no longer have a home in Tonawanda. And as I stated, I've been living in the city for well over a year now at 361 Taunton.
Okay. Other than that, does any of the other council members have any questions for the commissioner? Councilmember Bowman? Will you raise your hand? Okay. All right. Vinny, I see your hand up. Go ahead, please.
So according to the charter and then the extension, he and his family should have been living in the city of Buffalo as of January 2019. Can we get a confirmed date of when he became an official city resident, Mr. Chairman?
All right. I'm not sure if that is something, and I'm gonna be honest with you, Vinny. I have hired staff who did not live in Maston District. All right. And I asked them if they wouldn't mind when they renewed their lease to find an apartment in Maston District. I gave them a timeline. Their timeline was set, and the timeline came and had gone, but they were in transition at the end of that deadline. I'm not sure if HR Human Resources has a mechanism or even a disciplinary method to enforce for someone to literally, be gone or live in the city by a certain time or not. But if they're in transition, I know that it's difficult to sell a house in 6 months. And I'm not defending anyone, but I know that it's difficult to sell a house and close and everything and negotiate, do the search and surveys and everything that needs to be done in 6 months. Sometimes hold on a second. Sometimes it could take 6 months. Sometimes it could take longer. Sometimes it could take a little bit shorter. However, if he's living in the city currently and has been living in the city over a year now, I'm not sure why we're going back to January 2019.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman, just for everyone's edification, I built a house in the city with every intention to live in the city after my appointment. So to think otherwise, I think would be ludicrous. So once again, I'm a city resident. I built a new home in the city. I reside in that home, and I'm glad to entertain any questions along those lines. So thank you.
Okay, well,
Mr. Chairman,
hold on one second, Vinny. Councilmember Roman.
I would just like to, Mr. Chair, say that for future reference, though, I'd like to speak with Human Resources, kind of along the lines of Councilmember Rivera was saying, to see if, we do, or should have a mechanism. I know Councilmember Scanlon was speaking a lot about that and worked on that as far as having someone that would look into residency and enforcement in the future. So I think that's important. Thank you.
Absolutely. Vinny?
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to disagree with you, but I'd have to say it starts with this. My members must live in the city 90 days prior to even taking the exam. The commissioner by charter must live in the city from the date he is appointed. You graciously gave him 6 months. Now, on top of that, I couldn't disagree with you more I've just been appointed to a $140,000 a year job and collect 2 pensions. I can sell a house in Tonawanda and move into the city rapidly. And that's why you gave him a 6-month extension, which is more than gracious when the charter states he must live in the city from appointment date. And then on top of it, my members are held to a standard. They have to live in the city 90 days prior to taking the exam. They're not even afforded the opportunity to be a resident, even if they don't even have the job. They may not have the job and they have to be city residents 90 days prior to taking the exam. This is a hot topic in our department. And now I just want to make sure today is October 20th. So the commissioner is saying that in October of 2019, he was absolutely a resident of the city of Buffalo.
Well, that sounds to me like that's what he's saying. And also too, this was an appointment by the mayor. He was not hired as a firefighter in the front line. That's completely different. So he established that he lives in the city. He sold his house. His family lives in the city. I'm not sure where else we're going to go with this. Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that the question in front of us is one of fairness more than anything. And the fact that there is no teeth in our charter to ensure that when an appointee, whether it's the commissioner or any other appointee, is not living in the city of Buffalo after the allotted time and after the waiver. And I think that we may be doing our firefighters a disservice if we do not basically say, I mean, if I could ask the commissioner, after the 6-month waiver, did you move into the city?
Yes, I did. I will admit I was traveling back and forth between both homes. As I said on previous occasions, house was up for sale. It was a private sale. Trying to do a friend a favor. Unfortunately, his finances fell through. So at that time, I did get a realtor, and the house sold very quickly. So obviously, if I can go back in time, I would love to have sold the home more quickly than I did. Just going back in time since the beginning of my administration, just to be clear, myself and my staff, this organization was leaderless for quite a long time. Not quite a long time, but for some time before we came on board. So in the early days, myself and my deputies were working probably 10, 12-hour days. So while yes, I should have been a little more diligent in trying to sell my home a little more quickly, those 10 and 12-hour days quickly turned into 12 and 15-hour days after the pandemic struck. So between those early days and the days following the onset of the pandemic, we were very busy around here. I could probably use 68 Court Street as my primary residence since I spent most of my hours here, to be honest with you. But anyways, that's not a defense. I could have done a better job. I wish I could have done a better job. But be that as it may, as I said, I've been a resident of the city for well over a year. I was traveling back and forth to both homes, maintaining 2 homes. And I've been very transparent about that. The so-called anonymous report was really just a snapshot in time. I mean, whoever was lurking in my bushes on Louvain and Tonawanda could easily put pictures of me at my home on Taunton. But obviously that wasn't newsworthy and probably didn't fit anybody's narrative. But that's it. Pending any questions.
And I think that, and I don't know how much we can do backwards based on what the charter allows, but I do think that it is a problem. I think that the visual and the optics of it are probably what is the hardest for the union and for the firefighters who have to live in the city of Buffalo or possibly like lose their jobs. And I think that that's where the discussion, why we're having this discussion right now. And I want to do a thorough review of that, because what I don't want to see in the future is for this council or for another commissioner or employee for us to have to go through this over and over again, when clearly there isn't much teeth that is given to us to do anything at this point about it. I think it's a little unfortunate, and what I do appreciate, Commissioner, is you saying, and I agree, you probably should have done a better job at this, especially because the people who work for you and take commands from you, they have to live in the city of Buffalo. And so I think that it is, regardless of whether whoever did the investigation, at the end of the day, there was a responsibility to full-time be in the city of Buffalo in a residence. If I can ask Corporation Counsel, is there anything, is there a penalty if he didn't live in the city of Buffalo, or any other commissioner or employee for that matter? I think she's trying to get unmuted. You kind of unmuted and then went back to mute.
Malcolm, could you possibly request?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, good. And the question was whether there is some repercussions,
What's
I guess,
the
or
penalty?
not.
Well, I mean, it's in our charter, and this is a broad question, because if this comes up again, what if we have it, if in the charter it states that someone, a commissioner or whoever, has to live in the city of Buffalo, what's the teeth if they don't?
Right. Assistant Corporation Counsel Karen Gordon, and I do not know specifically if there is an alternative, like what happens if a person does not do what he's expected to do, and in this case would be become a resident of the city. I would say that my former knowledge is that residency is a criteria for employment. So we can conclude that if you don't have residency, then do you have a job, or should you have a job, right? But outside of that, I cannot say specifically what the result would be, because I've never dealt with that before. I believe HR might be the best person to really say what it is that they usually do in those situations.
And I appreciate that, and hopefully HR, if this item is going to remain open, that the next time that HR is on. But I think that as a council who has the responsibility for legislation, that area needs to be reviewed, and that it needs to be changed, in that if a commissioner does not, within the 6 months, as the commissioner said, he could have done a better job with it, that should they retain their position? My top of the head position is no, that they shouldn't, because a brand new firefighter would not be able to retain his position. But if we don't have the teeth in the charter right now for that to occur, then the council can't do much about it. But I don't want us to just kind of go like, oh well. I think that we should pull that portion and revise it to the point that it is very clear for those who are being appointed in the future, because this won't be the last commissioner appointed, that if they do not, within the time frame of full-time, live in the city of Buffalo, even after a waiver, that this council should review their appointment immediately upon that information. I think without that type of teeth, we're going to have this discussion and it's just going to go away. And I think that the purpose of this discussion is if that occurred, and obviously the commissioner, by his own words just now, said he could have did it better, which suggests to me that there was time spent at the other residence as a living quarters. And at the end of the day, what are we going to do about it? If we do nothing about it and it comes up again, then I think we have failed. I think that we need to do something about it to ensure that there is either an immediate review, or in which I think there should be a review by this council. And I think that's why we need HR on this conversation. And then I think that if a person is building a house or transitioning, they have to come back before the council. And they either have to ask for an extension. This council has to decide whether that extension can be granted or whether it cannot. And there has to be another appointment until that occurs. I think without that, we're going to end up with this discussion again, not just about this commissioner, but any other employee in the city of Buffalo. So with respect, I ask Mr. Chair if the council chief of staff can pull that the reg for us, share it with all the council members, and so that we can have a full discussion about the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member Pridgen, Council President Pridgen. The Corporation Council, can I ask you this question? The mayor has liberty to appoint whomever he wants to various positions. And those appointments, they come to the council. We receive and file those, or do we approve those? What do we do with those?
Assistant Corporation Counsel, I believe we usually receive and file them because we cannot deny the mayor's appointment. So usually we review it, but we normally receive and file it. It's not an approve or a disapprove.
Okay, so the appointments that we are able to vote on and approve or deny, which ones are those?
I cannot speak at the top of my head right now, but I believe it might be more. Yeah, I don't want to say because I'm not 100% certain, but I know as it relates to the executive branch, the mayor has the prerogative to, appoint certain individuals to certain positions, and those positions are not, we can review them, but we don't have the prerogative to deny them.
So okay, and I see you, Majority Leader Rivera. Now, the council then, from what you're saying, I'm deducing that we cannot deny the mayor an appointment, because if we can't deny the mayor's appointment, then we have no power to fire or reprimand his appointments either, correct? No more than he has the right to fire our appointments, correct?
I would not go that far. I don't want to make those conclusions at this moment. I don't have sufficient information to do so. But
Okay.
again, I would say it's a little bit different when it comes to the mayor's appointments.
All right, so listen, this is what I believe we need to do. We do need to have a conversation with HR, and I'll get to Councilmember Rivera in a second, but we do need to have a conversation with HR just so that we know exactly what to do. And I do believe the city clerk is on. Is the city clerk still on, Chief of Staff?
Yes, we have several representatives from the office.
Okay, is the city clerk on?
She is connected, yes.
Yes, I am here.
Good morning, City Clerk. The question was posed earlier, but I want to just reiterate and just re-ask the question. Does the council approve the mayor's appointments? Just to be direct, do we approve or do we receive and file?
We receive and file on his appointment to hire, as stated earlier, from Corporation Counsel. That is correct.
Okay.
Receive and file.
Now, what positions are we afforded the ability to deny and or approve that the mayor should happen to appoint?
Councilmember Wingo, again, I wouldn't have that on the top of my head in regards to certain positions as of what the ability we have as far as the mayoral appointments. So I couldn't, again, give you a direct answer as far as what direct positions we have in regards the mayor has for you guys to approve or deny.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, 1 second, Council President, Majority Leader, and then Council President. So what you're, because this is, I'm kind of frustrated only because, we receive notices of appointment. All right. And some of those notices we approve, and some of those notices we receive and file. How is it that we don't have a recollection right now of what is received and filed and what is approved? Now, you said you don't have the information at the top of your head. I understand that. But I think that's something that we need to find out, number one. Number two, I'll go to Councilmember Rivera and then Council President Pridgen.
So Councilmember Wingo, if I can provide your response to the question you just asked. So
Sure.
you stated the approvals that the council gives is directly towards the city departments as far as public works, SOAR.
That is the that is the answer that I was looking for. Thank you, Tiana. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So just to clear that up, as far as any department heads, as far as those are the mayoral appointments, just as the council have leadership appointments that are just as far as adopt or already received and filed. So it, again, like Corporation Counsel said, it depends on the position at which is before the council where different motions are made on positions.
All right, because I know the city charter says that the commissioner of fire will be appointed by the mayor, subject to the confirmation of the council. But the mayor it's his prerogative to remove any commissioner. All right, and he can do that. Those are at-will appointments. He can remove anyone whenever he gets ready to. So with that, I'll go to Councilmember, and thank you, Tiana, for that insight, and Councilmember Rivera, and then Councilmember Pridgen. Oh, you're muted, Rivera, Councilmember Rivera.
I agree, because there was an incident where the Common Council refused to confirm one of the mayor's appointments, and he was not appointed. It was Dave Rodriguez, who the mayor wanted to make Corporation Counsel, and he did not have the votes on the Common Council to be confirmed. So he was not confirmed. Eventually they appointed someone else. So there are positions where the Common Council has to confirm. The mayor appoints, but the Common Council confirms. In that particular incident, I recall that the Common Council denied. That's the only appointment that I can think of where the Common Council denied the mayor's appointment for different reasons during that time. I just want to make sure that, there's so many different departments, so many different contracts. And it's very difficult to enforce this. I know the Buffalo Police Department, for example, had a person within the department that would go to police officers' house to confirm that they were living in the place that we're supposed to be living. I don't know how each department does this. I don't know if there's a move to have an individual in one department that does the whole city. I think that's almost next to impossible. We just don't have the staff to enforce. How many thousands of employees or how many hundreds of employees do we have that have to live within the city? So each department was, I think, charged with making sure their employees lived in the city of Buffalo. And HR, as far as the law department, let me go back to the law department. It's up to the council's role in this whole thing. Here we are talking about residency. Does that fall within the purview of the Common Council, where we're going to have unions coming to us and saying, hey, they're not living, or they're filing grievances and say that, yes, I did live in the city, or no, I didn't live in the city. What role does the Common Council have other than confirming, receiving and filing? What role does the Common Council? Now, this is a executive decision the mayor has to make. If, for example, the commissioner did not conform to the charter, is it the mayor's responsibility to do something about this, or is the Common Council charged with that? Because I really don't know.
Well,
I don't know what role we have in this whole thing.
Well, Majority Leader, I think that you were playing right into the point that the council president was making regarding the legislation that we have currently. The legislation, if it is not clear, it should be more clear on whether or not the Common Council has a role in ensuring residency of Buffalo City employees. Now, we're talking about fire. I mean, we can talk about police later, but we're talking about fire. The fire commissioner is hired at the discretion of the mayor. The council confirms that appointment. And after the appointment has been confirmed, if that position should become vacant, the mayor does not at that point need council approval for 6 months. So he can appoint someone for 6 months without the council's approval to fill that vacancy on an interim basis. After that, that person would have to be confirmed by the common council. But again, as far as going in and checking who actually lives in the city or not, that is either an endeavor that a person will take individually and provide evidence, or the city just doesn't have an individual to check on the residency of the thousands of employees that we currently have. Was that it, Mr. Rivera?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the logistics of checking on all of the employees in the various departments where they work various shifts. How does that fall? Where does it fall? How do we enforce it? Is it enforced by each department, or is there one department that just has a duty to check up on residency? I don't know, because we've talked about this in the past, but we kind of moved on to something else. But this is going to repeat itself going forward because the city is looking to include residency in its contracts. So we have to make sure that if you're going to include this in the contracts, that we then have to enforce it. If the will is that people live in the city of Buffalo, then we have to make sure that that's enforced in the city. And what are the penalties should a person not live in the city when they're supposed to? Is it termination? Is it reprimand? Is it, but you want to be fair. The common council president mentioned fairness. So we want to be fair. If we treat a commissioner one way, then we should treat some of the employees in a similar fashion. So we have to talk about the fairness, how this is applied. Is it applied across the board? Is it applied fairly? So we have to have HR come into this and make sure that it's applied fairly.
Absolutely. I believe in a prior meeting, the commissioner of HR had mentioned that it would be up to the department head to ensure and verify residency. Now, if we're talking about, I see you, Vinny, after Council President Pridgeon. Now, if we're talking about giving the council that oversight, then of course, at this point, some legislation is going to need to be drafted. Council President.
Thank you. Part of what I wanted to say has been said, because it was said that we receive and file. And I think that got corrected. So I want to be clear. We don't receive and file. We have confirmation. And we can say yes or no as Council Member Rivera. I'm reading it right now in 14-2. That's number one. Number two, this council has investigative powers. And when something is brought before this council, the council not only has the power and the responsibility to investigate it for the checks and balances of government. And it is not as if we have no power at all in a situation that may come before us like this. We absolutely do, and we have a responsibility, especially when it is an appointment of a commissioner. We have a responsibility to respond to that. We might not, what we do not have is any means to investigate it. I think that and you're totally correct, when the human resource, when the commissioner was on, said it was a department situation. I think that that's horrible. I think that the way it's written is horrible, because I'll just say, if I appoint a appointee and I know, and this is not about the commissioner, this is in general, and that's what brought us here, and I know they don't live in the city of Buffalo, I'm going to be the one to investigate it. It doesn't make sense that the appointing party is the one to investigate it. And then at the end of the day, we know that this is no reflection on anybody on this call, but it doesn't have checks and balances. I think that's the point. the way that this is written right now, there are no checks and balances. So Darius can appoint a office person, and they say they live in Buffalo. They really don't. I know it. Who's going to do the investigation? The person who appointed them? No. It's so I think that this needs the legislation needs immediate review. And unfortunately, it took a situation like this to get us here to really have this discussion, because we've had it in the past, and we've had the discussion of having someone in place. And I do agree that during a crisis of finances, it might not be the time, but then we probably shouldn't be negotiating with unions for their members to live in the city of Buffalo, because we can't say to them, give us this portion. And then if one of the firefighters is found out there living in Niagara Falls or something, they're going to get fired, period. So I think this needs immediate review for the future. And I mean immediate review, because it's just not fair in the way that it's laid out right now. And it's just not practical that the person who appoints would be the one who would investigate, because that's what it is right now. When we ask that question, I think it stinks. Thank you.
All right, so we've heard a lot on this matter, and Vinny, I know that you had your hand up. Is there anything new that you want to express regarding this issue?
Just real quick. Number one, we were presented with an investigation that we were compelled to act on. We provided it to the council and to the mayor. Obviously, we see where we are on it. At the end of the day, we had to act on it. I think it's been stated very clearly by the commissioner that he lived in the city in January 2019. He's lived in the city for over a year. He stated that clearly. And at the end of the day, I guess we have some major concerns that that our members have to live in the city, and if they got caught living outside the city, what the repercussions would be. So I think that's a really big part of this. So at the end of the day, we appreciate your time and bringing us on. And, I know you're trying to finish it off. So that's all I have.
Well, we do want to ensure that we have a substantive and productive conversation around this issue, but I do believe Councilmember Scanlon is on the line and he would like to speak. But Councilmember Scanlon, you are muted. Can we unmute Councilmember Scanlon?
He is unmuted. The control is still on his end.
All right, Councilmember Scanlon, the control is up to you to unmute your device.
*6.
*6. 6. All right, you're live, Councilmember Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize about being muted there. Unless I'm completely wrong, I think the council president's right. I recall times in the past where mayoral appointees have been up for confirmation and the council has chosen not to confirm. I think Councilmember, I hopped on late, but I believe Councilmember Rivera said that as well, that the council has the responsibility of voting to confirm or not confirm. But when we're talking about residency and all of that stuff, HR was in the past, the commissioner was in, and she spoke about private investigators that they use to check on this thing should an allegation be made against an employee or head of a department that may live outside the city. And the questions I had for her at the time were because in the past, I filed a resolution looking for the city to hire residency inspectors themselves, and I wanted to know how much the private investigators cost us. Are we doing this as per use fee, or how much it was costing us? Because I wanted to weigh that out versus actually hiring someone, see how many times we were using them, and weigh that out. The other thing is that Council President Pridgeon makes a very good point about the department head who's actually doing the hiring being responsible for that, and that sort of built-in conflict. But I think one of the ways we get around that is, and if I'm maybe Corporation Counsel can correct me if I'm wrong, but the HR commissioner is, when appointed, takes on a 6-year term instead of a 4-year term. like the other commissioners who would fill during the mayor's, whoever the mayor should be during their 4-year term. The HR commissioner actually is hired for a 6-year term, and therefore can avoid some of that conflict. Again, if there's legislation coming that might change that and give it a little more teeth, I'm all for that. But I just wanted to put all that information out there so people were aware of it.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Scanlon. Is there anything else from anyone else? Okay, there it is. We will move forward, and I will table this issue so that if any future legislation is brought to the table, it can be amended because of this issue here specifically regarding the commissioners and the mayor's appointments and their residency and the status that the council has to either reprimand or what we will put in place in the future to ensure that this doesn't happen in the future. But as far as the council is concerned, we do have subpoena power. We do have a duty to investigate on behalf of the city of Buffalo's residents. We do have a duty to ensure that these quote unquote investigations are done with integrity and fidelity. So moving forward, we will do our due diligence to ensure that the laws of this city, the charter reflects equity, accountability, and fairness. All right, with that being said, I'm going to ask that we motion to table this item. Councilmember.
Motion to table.
Seconded by Councilmember Bowman.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Councilmember Bowman.